"It's all your fault. If you hadn't meddled, I will never forgive you. Go to hell." The person who had been smug just a moment ago was now furiously yelling at me. Even though it was all their fault, they blamed me. Embarrassingly, that person was my mother-in-law, Benedetta. She lay on the floor, crying, but it was too late. I'll return those words right back to her. Go to hell. My name is Nancy, a 35-year-old company employee. I live with my husband Milford and our 4-year-old son Zeke. I haven't had much luck with meeting someone. I meant it as a light joke at work, but my boss, the department head, suggested, "How about my son? He's about your age and has a mild-mannered personality. Why don't you meet him once?" And that's how I met my now husband, Milford. We hit it off, got married the next year, and had our son Zeke the year after. Everything went smoothly. Life is so unpredictable. But, of course, not everything in life goes well. They say marriage isn't just about the couple. Dealing with family can be tough. Initially, at family gatherings, my detestable mother-in-law Benedetta would say, "Nancy, we're running low on drinks over here. Sorry, she's not very competent." She made me work even harder while I was busy preparing the meal. Do it yourself. And then there was another person. "Come on, hurry up, I'm hungry," said Milford's sister, my sister-in-law, Eleanor. She resembled Benedetta in looks and personality, but not at all like my husband. She's been job-hopping, 10 years younger than my husband. "Eleanor, could you help out a bit?" I asked with a wry smile. "Ew, why? You're his wife, right? That's your job. Besides, I'm busy," she grumbled, sitting down to play games on her mobile phone. Over 20 years old and yet, she talks like a child. I disliked her too. Benedetta never said anything to Eleanor, no matter how much she complained to me. A relative, fed up, said, "Hey, Nancy's pregnant, right? Make Eleanor help too." At that time, I was pregnant with Zeke, but Benedetta, unfazed, said, "Well, she's pregnant, but she's not showing yet." And Nancy volunteered. "Eleanor's tired from dealing with her mean boss every day. I'll take care of it. Ah, my leg. Ouch." I mean, that's not the point. What's with her suddenly? Meanwhile, Eleanor, perhaps scoring high in her game, was oblivious to us and posing victoriously next to Benedetta. When Benedetta's leg was mentioned, the relatives always fell silent. There's a reason for that. As I was doing the dishes in the kitchen, Cheryl, Gwen's sister and my husband's aunt, came up from behind and said, "I'm sorry about earlier. I shouldn't have said that." "Oh no, not at all. I was actually happy earlier," I responded with a smile. This countryside, I tell you, hosting and everything else, it's all on the women. The men should help out a bit too. While she complained, she would sometimes joke, and I liked this aunt-in-law. She's a bright person and always takes charge at family gatherings. Although I got along with everyone, my relationship with Benedetta was quite poor. Milford's late mom was such a nice person, but why on earth did he remarry someone like her? Cheryl said this and sighed deeply. In fact, Milford and Benedetta are not blood related. Milford's biological mother passed away due to illness around the time he started elementary school. And around at the age of 11, Gwen remarried, and that partner was Benedetta. The story of Gwen and Benedetta's meeting is tied to why Benedetta has a bad leg. I don't know all the details, but it seems Gwen once had a car accident and Benedetta was the other party. At that time, Benedetta suffered a leg injury that required stitches, and it seems that the accident left her with lasting issues. How they ended up getting married is unclear, but Eleanor was born soon after they married. I shouldn't really say, but life is full of unexpected connections. As for Milford and Benedetta, their relationship isn't good either. In fact, I hardly ever see them talk. My husband Milford is a man of few words but very kind. He is attentive to the little things, and I'm always grateful for his help. When we visit his family, he talks a lot with Gwyn, but hardly ever with Benedetta and Eleanor. I don't think of her as a mom. I don't know what she told my sister, but she seems to dislike me, he once said. I asked if he wanted to get along better, but the answer was no. He said with a wry smile, I don't have many good memories. As a child, I forced a smile for that sake. I didn't ask further after that. When I first met Benedetta and the others, she barely participated in the conversation, finished her meal quickly, and left with Eleanor, saying, You can do as you please from here. What a rude person. My first impression of Benedetta and the others was the worst. Benedetta, uninterested in her son, naturally didn't dote on my son Zeke either, and never even held him since he was born. I didn't want her touching my son anyway, so it didn't bother me. The only thing that troubled me was seeing Zeke ask sadly, Does Grandma hate me? All my husband could do was apologize when he saw our son like that. Gwyn, seeing this, once said to Benedetta, Can't you change your attitude? We're family after all. But she replied, To be clear, my family is only you and Eleanor. I'd like to get along, but Milford has been glaring at me since he was young. It's scary. And it seems she couldn't accept me and Zeke as family either. Also Nancy, she's cozying up to Cheryl, whom I dislike. She always picks fights with Eleanor. I don't want to get along with her. My good relationship with Cheryl also seems to be a point of contention. As for Eleanor, I only scolded her at family gatherings for her slothful behavior. Her resentment towards me is quite misplaced. What's that about makes no sense. Because of Benedetta's attitude, we only saw her and Eleanor at family gatherings, New Year's celebrations, funerals, and weddings. Since Gwyn is my husband's boss, and they seem to be in regular contact, I had resigned myself to this relationship continuing as is. However, an unexpected event was about to change this dynamic. It happened just after Gwyn retired, saying he was looking forward to relaxing. Gwyn was diagnosed with cancer. I had been feeling off lately, but cancer, this is tough, he said weakly, smiling on the hospital bed. The cancer had progressed considerably and had spread to other organs. The doctor said he had about a year left and our family couldn't stop crying. We should make sure Gwyn has no regrets and let him live his remaining life the way he wants to, I said. My husband nodded, tears in his eyes. A few days later, I received a call from an unexpected person. Hello, Nancy. I have a favor to ask. It was Benedetta, surprisingly. Usually, she's harsh with me, but that day she called with a sickeningly sweet tone. Her request was, since my husband is hospitalized, could you handle bringing his things and doing paperwork? I have a bad leg, you know. Her words infuriated me. I have a job and can't always be there. Aren't you a housewife, Benedetta? And I heard Eleanor quit her job again. Annoyed by my angry response, Benedetta yelled, That's why I'm asking you. You're so unpleasant. Eleanor just hasn't found the right job yet. She's recharging now. But it's obvious that Eleanor's employment issues were her own doing. Her frequent tardiness Leaving early or not returning from breaks on time led to one incident where a senior employee had to fetch her, only to find her absorbed in a mobile game, saying, "Wait a bit longer, I'm at a good part." She was fired for these reasons, but blamed it on her boss pressuring her. Eleanor, in her mid-20s, had a dismal employment history. Sometimes Benedetta would even storm into Eleanor's workplace, demanding to see a manager. I felt sorry for her co-workers. Benedetta's catchphrase was, "Eleanor is delicate, just like me." Every time I heard that, I thought, who's saying that? When I stayed silent on the phone, Benedetta said, "So, you see, I'm so shocked my husband is ill. I'm thinking of taking Eleanor on a trip for a change of scenery. We're leaving tomorrow." I couldn't understand what she was saying. She seemed out of her mind. Huh? A trip? Wait a minute. Just so you know, from now on, you'll handle all the paperwork. Tell Milford too. Bye. She hung up abruptly, and then I couldn't reach her anymore. When I told my husband, he was furious, as expected. The next day, we went to his parents' house, but nobody was there. It seemed Benedetta and Eleanor had indeed gone on their trip. Unbelievable! How could they? I'm the type to express my anger quickly, but my husband bottles it up until he explodes. When such people get angry, it's actually quite scary. My husband sighed. "Anyway, let's take that things to him. I know where most of it is." Their house was large, with individual rooms and even a study exclusively for Gwyn. As we gathered his things, we found something in Gwyn's room that shouldn't have been there. We were both chilled to the bone when we saw it. Gwyn's surgery was successful, but the prognosis wasn't good. Benedetta and Eleanor, taking advantage of his absence, did as they pleased. When they occasionally showed up at the hospital room, Benedetta only talked about money, and Eleanor was glued to her mobile phone. There were times when Gwyn was well enough for a temporary discharge, but instead of returning to his house, he said, looking guilty, "Milford, Nancy, can I stay with you? I want to see Zeke." It broke my heart to see him like that, and I replied, "Of course, Zeke has been wanting to see his grandpa." After several hospital stays, Gwyn peacefully passed away in our care and that of his brother and sister-in-law. After Gwyn fell ill, my husband was able to open up more, deepening their relationship. Gwyn wished for a family-only funeral, so we planned it that way. My husband was to lead the funeral, while Benedetta declined, citing her painful leg. Gwyn had done so much for us. He brought my husband into my life, and because of that, we had Zeke. I couldn't get along with Benedetta and Eleanor, but even without them, my gratitude was immense. As I was lost in thought, Benedetta beckoned me over. I approached, wondering what it was about, and then she said, "Nancy, can you leave right after the funeral? It will turn to money talk, and you'd be out of place, right?" I couldn't believe she would say something so outrageous at a time like this. I reached my limit with this woman who only talked about money. "Don't joke. Money, money, money. Is that all you think about? You should be ashamed. Gwyn would be." I shouted so loudly it echoed throughout the building. Benedetta, taken aback, said, "Keep your voice down." But I didn't care. Relatives who heard the commotion came to see what was happening. My husband soon joined me. "She's telling me to leave. It's too much." "What? I didn't say she had to leave right now. Just when it comes to money matters. She's just Milford's wife, a stranger." Benedetta tried to justify. Of course, no one agreed with her. Benedetta and Eleanor were already disliked by the family, but they tolerated them because Gwyn never said anything. Cheryl, red in the face, confronted Benedetta. "What do you think of my brother? You approached him because of your leg injury, but is that leg really bad?" I had always doubted Benedetta's leg injury, and probably so did others. Benedetta loved traveling and shopping, always light on her feet. It was clear she used her supposed disability to avoid responsibilities. Gwyn must have known, but he stayed with her for his son's sake. "Dad, I always disliked her, but I forced a smile as a kid because you chose her." My husband had shared this with Gwyn during his illness. Gwyn looked deeply saddened by these words. "You smiled, so I thought, I'm sorry, Milford." They were both men of few words. Maybe if they had faced each other sooner, the future could have been different. But the worst part was this woman in front of me taking advantage of Gwyn's kindness. My heart was full of loathing with Benedetta. "If Nancy leaves, then I'm leaving too. My family is Nancy and Zeke. Well, I can't, being the representative." My husband then asked the funeral staff if there was another venue available. The staff looked troubled. Meanwhile, relatives glared at Benedetta. Feeling uncomfortable, she played the victim. "I'm the victim here. Suddenly, my husband brings a mistress, tells me she's marrying Milford, then cheats on me with her." Benedetta's implication that I was the mistress almost made me lunge at her. Then my usually calm husband burst out. "Enough is enough! Don't lump me in with you! You've been betraying Dad all along!" His anger finally exploded. Benedetta, realizing he might be onto something, looked panicked. "Me and Dad are both blood type O, while you and Eleanor are type A. That's what we always heard, but I found your blood test result in Daddy's study. It says your blood type is O." Someone in the family whispered, "Isn't that odd? 2 O types can only produce O type offspring, right?" "It's some mistake. I'm A type, no doubt. Stop making false accusations here." Benedetta still tried to maintain some composure. "This is the health check report I found, along with a DNA test for Dad and Eleanor. It says a parental relationship is almost impossible." When my husband and I found these 2 documents, we were chilled. Gwyn had known everything. The DNA test was dated a few years back. Perhaps Gwyn found the blood test result and suspected something. Even then, he continued living with Benedetta and Eleanor. Maybe it was because of years of attachment. But it seems he finally saw through Benedetta and Eleanor's awful behavior after falling ill. Eleanor, who had been playing games and listening to our conversations, said, "Busted, ha ha ha. But does it even matter now? We've lived together for years, that's what counts." Emboldened perhaps by her only ally, Benedetta declared, "Right, I'm his wife. I'll take what's mine and leave this house with Eleanor. Oh, and Milford, we're selling the house, just so you know." "You, this fraud, don't mess with us. I'll report you to the police." Cheryl's face turned red with rage, and several relatives had to hold her back. Seeing this, Benedetta sneered, "The man's already dead. Don't make a scene, Cheryl." I couldn't help but laugh at Benedetta's triumphant smirk. She glared at me. "Laughing at a time like this? Are you insane?" To the furious Benedetta, I revealed a fact. "You've been talking about money this whole time. What money are you referring to?" Benedetta replied, "Huh? That's life insurance, money from selling the house, just money that's none of your business." "Ah, I see. But that's also none of your business, right? Since you left everything to us, we've taken care of the paperwork." I said this with the brightest smile. For a moment, Benedetta looked confused, Then, realizing the money was involved, her face went pale. You didn't?" "Yes, just as you guessed. The life insurance beneficiary and the house's ownership are now in Milford's name, not yours. Of course, it was all decided after discussing it with Gwyn." Upon hearing my words, Benedetta collapsed on her knees, crying in despair. Then she glared at me and shouted, "It's all your fault! If you hadn't meddled, I will never forgive you! Go to hell!" I replied with a smile, "What are you talking about? I'll return those words right back to you." One after another, relatives told Benedetta and Eleanor to leave, to get out quickly. Feeling extremely uncomfortable, they hurried away. Their escape was surprisingly swift for someone supposedly with a bad leg. We apologized to the funeral home staff and finally were able to proceed with Gwyn's funeral. Afterward, we discovered that they had been spending Gwyn's money extravagantly, thinking they would inherit a significant amount. Gwyn's savings were nearly gone, but we had anticipated that. Eleanor's biological father turned out to be an awful man, having an affair with Benedetta even before she married Gwyn. Benedetta continued the relationship even after marrying Gwyn. It seems Eleanor occasionally met her biological father, and they mocked Gwyn together, a despicable family. After Gwyn's death, they shamelessly tried to stay in the house. When my husband threatened to consult the police and lawyers, they disappeared the next day. My husband changed the locks immediately and renovated the old house into a rental property. We quickly found tenants, and now the rental income slightly increases our living expenses. Months later, I heard from a relative that they saw Benedetta and Eleanor looking shabby, being led away by some intimidating and unsavory characters. I doubt they can return to a normal life now, but they are strangers to us. It has nothing to do with our family. Since then, my husband got a transfer and we moved. He works less overtime now and is so happy to spend more time with our son Zeke. "Zeke, don't keep your worries to yourself. Talk to Dad about anything. I'll be here for you," he often says. Zeke seems pleased with this, responding cheerfully, "Got it." We cherish our family time and look forward to spending many happy days with our beloved family.
Can't you think before you act? Is that why people call you thoughtless and useless? Apologize to me now, and it better be a sincere apology. When my husband talks to me like this, I have no choice but to comply. If I talk back, we will end up in a big fight, and it might lead to divorce again. I learned from my last divorce that a woman must not defy her man. So in my next marriage, I thought I should be more submissive. But deep down, I knew that was wrong. I don't want to make the same mistake twice. This time, I'll find my happiness. That's what I thought. My name is Jory, and I'm a 35-year-old stay-at-home wife. After failing in my first marriage and going back to being single, I vowed not to make the same mistakes and have been living quietly. Thanks to my hard work, I met Brown and we got married. I'm often looked down upon, but it's better than my previous marriage, which was full of fights. I just live quietly, day by day. Brown is an energetic man, confident in himself, and a bit overbearing. Maybe because he's 2 years older than me. You're a housewife, so you should make sure I can relax at home since I'm the one who's earning. That's what a wife's job is. Why did you put away the remote? Leave it where I sit. You're really useless. He often complains. Or, "You need to work on being more attractive, even if it means faking youth. Make an effort to look younger than your age with makeup." He criticizes my appearance constantly. These were issues in my previous marriage too. And back then I would talk back to my ex-husband, resulting in big fights. Now, my thinking has changed, and I've decided to keep smiling and nodding without talking back. That's what I endure now. Marriage is all about patience. That's what I believed at the time. If I couldn't endure it, I wouldn't find happiness. In this marriage, I've been pretending to be less intelligent than I am. During my previous marriage, my ex-husband would rely on me when he was in trouble, but would say, "Smart women just aren't that charming." I think that was one of the reasons our marriage was so unhappy. So now, I pretend to be a graduate of a less prestigious university and avoid making any insightful comments. Thanks to that, Brown has started to say, "Jory really is a naive person. That's what makes her cute." And he seems happy with me. To be loved as a woman, I've learned that intelligence isn't necessary. I just need to agree with everything Brown says without question. But then, something happened that changed all my stereotypes. It was at a family gathering where my mother-in-law's harassment forced me to prepare and serve food and drinks for all the relatives by myself. I thought about it a little, and then realized that if I cut down on unnecessary steps and movements, I could easily handle it all by myself. While simmering the dishes, I served the one that didn't require cooking and provided drinks using all 3 burners and managing everything alone. Just when I was about to finish cooking, Brown's sister, Kylie, came over with a worried look and said, "Jory, Mom says she's sorry. Are you okay? I'll help you." "I'm almost done, so it's okay." "What? Almost done? Have you worked in the culinary industry or something?" "I worked really hard, and before I knew it, everything was done." "I must be a genius." Pretending to be foolish isn't as easy as it seems. I've been imitating what someone who used to get yelled at for bad test scores in school said, somehow managing to cover it up. But just because someone has bad test scores doesn't mean they're not intelligent. So eventually, a mistake will be made. Pretending to be ignorant and not using my brain, telling myself that I'm stupid. Only then can I become a wife that Brown approves of. But Kylie saw right through my act. Even though she's 6 years younger, she spoke to me with more maturity than Brown and comforted me with kind words. "Jory, don't push yourself. If you're struggling, it's okay to say so. My brother doesn't always understand other people's feelings, so I know it can be tough. Please, rely on me during family gatherings and don't try to do everything by yourself." Hearing this, tears welled up in my eyes. Pretending to be someone I'm not was painful, and the fact that I had to act foolish to be loved was heartbreaking. Thank you. I thanked Kylie over and over and had her help me carry the food. Since then, Kylie and I have been chatting on social media and occasionally going out together. My in-laws consist of my father-in-law working overseas, leaving mother-in-law to manage the house on her own. That's why, when mother-in-law gets out of control, there's no one to stop her. I was glad to have Kylie on my side, and that was enough. But Kylie did more than I expected. At the next family gathering, when my mother-in-law tried to push work onto me, Kylie said, "Mom, a son's wife is someone else's precious daughter. If I get married, would you treat me the same way as Jory?" She defended me. At first, mother-in-law replied, "But Jory is a divorced person, right? People who get divorced must have some character flaws. If I don't educate her properly, Brown won't be happy. She's not smart and lacks skill, so I have to be strict." "Have you ever asked her why she got divorced?" "I don't know about that." "Well, that means you really need to see for yourself what kind of person Jory is. I know Jory's a good person, kind and very warm-hearted. But I'm worried because she sometimes neglects herself. You do see that, don't you, Mom?" Kylie conveyed with utmost sincerity, and mother-in-law gazed at her thoughtfully before looking serious. "Brown told me that you're struggling in your marriage because you're not very bright. But just like this kid says, even when I've given you impossible tasks at family gatherings, you've managed them effortlessly. If you were really dumb or inept, you wouldn't have been able to do them." "See?" Kylie exclaimed, and mother-in-law apologized to me. "I've only been listening to Brown's opinion, and I thought it was right, Jory. I'm truly sorry for my rudeness until now." It's all right." Mother-in-law apologized to me repeatedly. Honestly, being told to do all the cooking never made me feel uncomfortable. I never even thought it was harassment, but I was slightly happy, thinking that mother-in-law and I might get along better from now on. After that, mother-in-law was tough on Brown. "Stop complaining about Jory and start making an effort to be a good husband that matches her." Brown was initially downcast by this, but it seemed to have wounded his pride. When he got home, he glared at me and yelled, "What did you tell Mom? Really, having a dumb wife is a pain." I didn't say anything. Even if mother-in-law says something, just be yourself. I told her that you've always treated me well at family gatherings. My bewildered response only made Brown angrier. "Huh? You're saying you lied to me? So you don't really like me?" "No, I'm always grateful. Thanks to you, I, with no education and not very bright, can live." When I pleaded like this, Brown smirked with an eerie smile. "Oh, really? Then you'll do whatever I say, right?" "Yes, I'll do anything." "Then, because you messed up and I got yelled at by Mom, you'll get no allowance as punishment. I've been giving you $100 a month, but it'll be $0 now. If you want it back, just think about pleasing me every day." Brown said that and retreated to the bedroom. Alone, I felt disheartened, muttering, "Was this marriage a mistake?" Being prone to logical thinking, I tried to figure out what went wrong and how to do better next time. But I didn't really understand why Brown got so angry. If mother-in-law scolded him, it was his fault, not mine. I couldn't quite grasp Brown's way of thinking. Anyway, even without an allowance, I wouldn't be in trouble since I had nearly $10,000 saved up from before marriage. I didn't want to please Brown, so I continued to live as I had been. However, suddenly, for some unknown reason, Brown grabbed my arm, forced me to sit on the floor, and said, "Can't you use your head more? This is why people call you thoughtless and useless. Apologize to me. Deeply apologize to me." I didn't understand why Brown was so angry, and I apologized, humiliated by the situation. I'm sorry, I'm not bright enough to understand why you're angry, Brown. Really? You're the worst, incompetent woman. Don't sleep sitting like this all night. Figure out why I'm angry by morning, Brown said, then brought his phone charger into the living room and started charging his mobile phone. At first, I didn't understand what he was doing, but after he propped the phone with its back facing me, I heard a click sound. I'm recording you to make sure you don't move or sleep. You don't have a job since you're a stay-at-home wife, so staying up all night won't be an issue, right? But don't slack off on tomorrow's chores, or I won't forgive you, Brown said, and then went to the bedroom alone. I was a mess of disappointment, disbelief, and anger toward Brown. Regret surged within me, wondering why I had married such a man. I remembered that something similar had happened in my previous marriage. It wasn't that bad, but it seemed like my ex-husband also had a feeling of wanting to control me and wanting me to obey him at all costs. With that thought, the reasons for my failed marriages, both my previous one and the one with Brown, became clear. It was my poor judgment in choosing men. I became angry at my past self for not coming to this conclusion earlier. Choosing a man so similar to the last one, wasn't I just failing to learn from my previous mistakes? Once I understood that, the only thing left was a feeling of wanting to end this marriage, which was neither enjoyable nor anything else. All that's in me now is a resolve to absolutely divorce him. I stood up, took Brown's mobile phone, and stopped the recording. I sent that video to my own mobile phone, edited it into a 2-hour clip of me just sitting still, sent it to Brown's mobile phone, and put it back in its original place. Then, I lay down on the sofa and woke up at 6 in the morning, hearing Brown rustling in the bedroom, and I went back to the floor. Brown seemed satisfied that I was sitting on the floor, but was shocked that the screen on his mobile phone had gone dark, and the video had stopped after about 2 hours. Did you do something to the video? Brown was making a fuss, but I pretended to know nothing, saying, Huh? I didn't do anything. I don't really understand mobile phones. Then, Brown seemed a little calmer and said, I'm sorry about yesterday. I got angry thinking you weren't trying to please me. I'm smart, so I didn't notice. But you're trying in your own not-so-smart way, right? He apologized with a condescending attitude. I was irritated, but I endured it and forgave him with a smile. Yeah, it's okay. Then Brown showed a relieved expression. Honestly, I don't care what Brown thinks because I'm gonna divorce him soon anyway. But I won't make it easy for him. I'll make sure Brown receives a fitting punishment, I thought to myself. Then, a month later, it was time for a family gathering, and Brown and I headed to my in-laws' house. I thought it would be a busy day as other relatives would be there, but when we entered the house, Mother-in-law and Kylie were cooking, and I was told to sit down and do nothing. I hadn't talked much with the relatives before, but Brown started chatting with the man in front of him, and I joined the conversation. The man turned out to be Brown's uncle, and I had felt like I recognized him from somewhere before. Then Brown started to explain to me, My uncle teaches at Harvard. You might not understand, Jory, but he's doing some impressive work in the field of chemistry. At this, Uncle looked at my face and opened his eyes wide. "Brown, what are you talking about? There's no way Jory wouldn't understand that." These words left me even more perplexed. "What are you talking about, Uncle? Jory graduated from a lower-tier university and can't even operate a mobile phone properly. She's not bright at all. Having a connection with a Harvard professor like Uncle." Brown was saying this, but Uncle smiled kindly at me and said, "You're really quite excellent, aren't you? Why pretend to be foolish? Brown's the one who's actually at a much lower level. Doesn't it feel bad to be looked down on by someone like that? You should just be yourself." Uncle's loud voice caught the attention of other family members, and everyone at the table, including mother-in-law and Kylie, turned to look at us. "Well, I guess you're right. I'm getting tired of being ridiculed all the time. Shall I tell the truth? Actually, I graduated from Cambridge University. After that, I attended a graduate school in America." As I revealed this, Brown's face showed shock. What? You can't be!" "I think my IQ is around 150 or so, but that doesn't mean I'm smart. I end up marrying people like Brown, after all." I chuckled, and then Kylie spoke up. "Jory, could it be that your previous divorce happened because you were too smart for your husband to keep up with?" I had never talked about the reasons for my divorce, but it seemed Kylie had come to this conclusion. "Well, yes, that's right. My ex-husband said I was unattractive because I was intelligent. He kept saying women should be quiet and do housework and only serve their husbands. I logically refuted him every time, and he eventually said he didn't want to be with me anymore. That's why I've been pretending to be foolish in my current marriage." As I explained, Uncle nodded and said, "I knew it. You were at Harvard's graduate school for a while after Cambridge, weren't you? I thought I recognized you." I was surprised and said, "I was there for only about a year before moving to another graduate school, but you remember well. Now that you mention it, I did feel like I had seen Uncle somewhere before." "I never forget a face, though I'm not good with names. Besides, you were famous in the university for being both smart and beautiful. I thought you looked familiar, and indeed, it was you." Uncle began to laugh proudly for some reason, while Brown's face turned pale and rigid. Seeing this as a good opportunity, I said, "By the way, there's something I want to show everyone." I took out my mobile phone and played a video. It showed me sitting on the floor while Brown was instructing me to stay up all night. Brown's voice was clearly audible. Then Brown jumped up. "This is fabricated. You did this to frame me. The fact that you only filmed for 2 hours proves it was your fault, pretending to be an idiot." As he screamed this, he grabbed my collar. The men around restrained Brown, and mother-in-law said, "I don't want to dine with such a despicable man. Please throw him out." With that, Brown was thrown out of the house. At the entrance, mother-in-law yelled at Brown, who was crouching. "I didn't realize you were this foolish. I was foolish as well. I'll contact you later about what to do next. Go home and behave yourself." Then she slammed the door and locked it. Then mother-in-law bowed her head to me and said, "I'm so sorry about Brown. I had no idea he did such a terrible thing. And yet, I once believed what Brown said." She covered her face with her hands and started crying. Kylie and I supported mother-in-law's body. Mother-in-law isn't to blame, right? It's okay. I've already forgiven mother-in-law a long time ago. I reassured mother-in-law and kept repeating that until she finally recovered, put on a smile, and said, "The food's getting cold. Let's eat together." We all returned to the living room. Afterward, I had conversations with Uncle about his university research, and we had enjoyable chats with other family members. Then, I divorced Brown. Brown said he didn't want to be with a woman like me, so the divorce and property division went smoothly. At the end, when I showed him the passbook with $10,000 in savings that I had saved before marriage, Brown made an incredibly frustrated face and said, "I should have been kinder, even though I thought you were not smart. I'm sorry. You won't forgive me anymore, will you? I'm sorry." He regretted and apologized, but it was too late now. I ended my relationship with Brown without listening to his words. Afterward, it seems Brown was disowned by mother-in-law and cut off by Kylie. He sought help from relatives, but no one paid attention to him, and he is living a lonely life. Since then, I have found a job and I'm working hard. Who came up with the idea that a woman's happiness is in marriage? I can live happily without getting married. And now, I can focus on what I want to do. This is when I can be myself the most. Although I divorced Brown, I have built a good relationship with Kylie afterwards. I plan to never forget being myself and occasionally meeting and spend fun times with those I want to get along with.
What's this whole mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict people talk about? I've never felt it personally. Are there really such mean mothers-in-law out there? I get along great with Ethan's mom. Whenever I visit, we cook together and have a blast. If anything happens, I know Ethan will have my back. Ethan just proposed to me. My name's Zoe. I'm a 26-year-old office worker. I met Ethan in a college club, and we've been together for 8 years. Maybe that's why I get along so well with his mom. Back in college, we both aimed to join a major corporation. Ethan was so determined to join that famous company, and I took the chance too. Job hunting was tough, but we both made it in. We hugged and celebrated. But since then, our busy jobs meant we couldn't have many relaxed dates. We just wanted to support each other more than anything. That's when Ethan proposed. After 8 years, we felt inseparable. I was over the moon. We visited each other's families, and all that was left was the wedding. Then, one day, Ethan's mom, who was supposed to live with his brother Liam, asked to move in with us. I was taken aback. "We never discussed living together. What about my parents?" I said. Ethan tried talking to her, but she wouldn't listen. She had her reasons. "After your father passed, I couldn't do much for Liam. He didn't go to college, and without a high school diploma, he can't get a job. Ethan, you're all I have. You might as well be my eldest." "What? Liam's there with you. We can help financially." "I want to live with both Ethan and Zoe. Families support each other. I love you, Zoe." "Mother-in-law, but..." After discussing, we agreed to live with her until Liam got married. After the wedding, we moved in. But what awaited was the classic mother-in-law and daughter-in-law conflict. I was sure we'd be fine. The next morning, I woke up at 5 a.m. to find her already making breakfast. I rushed to the kitchen. "Good morning. I'm sorry I'm late. Let me help." "You sleep in so late. I've already made breakfast and Ethan's sandwich. Women should wake up early and handle the house. What kind of upbringing did you have?" Her words stung. I was shocked. What should I do? I was surprised from the first day. I was in a state of panic, not knowing what to do. What should I do in times like this? My mind went blank, and I said, Mother-in-law, I'm sorry, what should I do? You need instructions for everything? And you work at such a big company? Maybe you got in by luck and were about to be fired. That's why you rushed to marry Ethan. That's not true. We wanted kids, and I wanted to make things easier for you. Easier? I woke up early because there's one more person, and you're still sleeping. It's more work. I'm sorry. I don't like you. Don't defy me. Got it? What? Defy me, and you'll get a divorce. That's it. I faced the classic conflict I never expected. Every day was filled with her taunts and sarcasm. The dream life I had envisioned vanished before my eyes. I was exhausted, constantly trying to keep Ethan's mom in good spirits. We'd only been married for 3 months. I wanted to talk to Ethan about it, but he was always too tired from work and fell asleep immediately. I thought I'd have a chance when he got home. One day, as Ethan was changing in the bedroom, I brought up the mother-in-law issue. But Ethan dismissed it. Come on, Zoe, you're probably just misunderstanding. There's no way my mom would act like that with you. Anyways, I'm starving. Let's eat. I shouldn't have been surprised. In front of Ethan, mother-in-law was always the perfect mother. But behind closed doors, she was a nightmare. She'd constantly threaten, defy me and you'll get a divorce. Where did our feelings fit into all this? I grew distant from Ethan, feeling more and more isolated. One day, at my wit's end, I finally snapped back at her. You keep saying defy me, and you'll get a divorce. Fine, let's do it. What? Wait! A few days later, we divorced. Mother-in-law was shocked. She had always seen me as a servant, someone who'd do anything for her. Clean, do the laundry, make the bed, wax the floors, and when you're done, go shopping and prepare lunch. I want a roast beef sandwich today. After that, give me a 2-hour massage. Got it? Defy me and you'll get a divorce. I regretted not continuing my job. Still, I couldn't let go of my feelings for Ethan. I believed that I could build a happy family with Ethan. One day, as I was packing to leave, mother-in-law entered the room, looking anxious. What are you doing, Zoe? I'm leaving. I'll have movers pick up the rest later. This is a joke, right? It's no joke. You said if I defied you, we'd divorce, so let's do it. You're being so childish. It's obviously a joke. A joke? Stop messing around. I've had enough. Let's divorce. It's ridiculous that your mother even has a say in this. Well, I mean, it's just that I'm not your mother's servant, you know. I never treated you like that. You're just misunderstanding, Zoe. Every single day you let this happen and you call it a misunderstanding? Is this the kind of family your mother wanted? Wait, it's just, I've struggled raising our 2 sons. When Ethan got married, I thought I'd let out all the pent-up feelings. I felt this way for a long time. You wouldn't understand since you don't have kids. What are you talking about? Struggled? Your father left you a house and a good amount of money. Ethan was 16 then and didn't need much care. That's why I said you wouldn't understand. Have kids and then talk. Really? But taking out your frustrations on your daughter-in-law is wrong. Was I chosen just to be your stress reliever? Is that why you were nice to me? Of course, it's always been this way. A daughter-in-law shouldn't defy her mother-in-law. That's tradition. I quickly packed and left the house. She still insisted that what she did was right and told me to understand her struggles. If this is what family means, if being treated this way is what family is about, then I don't need such a family. I'm content with my own life. I calmed down at a nearby park and then went to my parents' house. The moment I saw my mom, I burst into tears. She felt so warm. "Zoe, what happened?" "Just wait a moment." She quickly made me a warm coffee. "Drink this and calm down. This isn't like you." After calming down a bit, I told her everything. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "I didn't want to worry you. You always care about me." "Silly girl, I'm always here for you. Just relax here. Maybe it's best to divorce. Life has its ups and downs." I cried like a child. She hugged me tightly. I wished I could be a mother like her. The more I thought about it, the sadder I felt about Ethan not supporting me. Even if we had a good relationship with his mother, he never listened to my concerns. The happy times before marriage felt like a lie after 8 years. I realized the complexity of the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law relationship. Ethan, oblivious to everything, came home as usual. He called me after confronting his mother, but I refused to answer. He kept calling, but I blocked him. I just wanted a break. Ethan kept calling me over and over again. I couldn't help but block his number. I just needed a break. That night, I enjoyed the creamy stew I made with Mom and went to bed early. When I woke up the next day, I was surprised it was already past 8 a.m. Rushing to the kitchen, Mom greeted me. "Did you sleep well?" "I slept like a log. It's been a while since I had such a good sleep." "Zoe, how about we go to a pottery class today?" "A pottery class? Today?" "It's a new place nearby. They let you join even for just one session. I've been wanting to make a vase. Thought it might be a good distraction." I decided to spend the day out with Mom. The pottery class was more engaging and fun than I expected. For that moment, I completely forgot about yesterday. Later, Mom and I had a late lunch and did some shopping. Helping with dinner, I realized it had been a while since we spent quality time together. During college and my early working days, I never really cooked with Mom. She looked genuinely happy, probably trying to cheer me up. A few days later, a letter arrived for me. Ethan's name was on the back. I opened it immediately. To my shock, it was divorce papers. I couldn't understand why Ethan would do this, but part of me felt relieved. I felt bad for not answering his calls, but sending divorce papers was a bit much. With no lingering feelings, I decided to fill them out and submit them to City Hall. Is this how breakups go? I started to think Ethan was just like my mother-in-law. What happened to those happy 8 years? As these thoughts consumed me, my phone buzzed. It was an email from Ethan. I hesitated but opened it, and there, the email painted a picture of Ethan, completely under mother-in-law's control. She had manipulated him, blaming everything on me. I was shaking. Could this really be happening? Had mother-in-law cried to Ethan? My head was spinning. Ethan's message. "I always believed in us. It hurts to be betrayed like this," left me conflicted. It was clear mother-in-law was behind this, but my feelings remained unchanged. The realization of mother-in-law's true nature was terrifying. Regardless, I decided to submit the divorce papers the next day. The next morning, I went to the city hall and had the papers processed. Surprisingly, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. Feeling motivated, I decided to start job hunting. A few days later, I got a call from a former boss. There was an opening in a subsidiary company, and they were struggling to find the right person. The offer was tempting, so I expressed my interest. Then, my phone rang. It was Ethan. Answering, I could hear a frantic Ethan. "Zoe, you haven't submitted the divorce papers, right? Let's forget all about it." "What?" "I'm sorry, I didn't know everything. Liam told me everything. It was all Mom's doing. Liam knew about her true nature, but couldn't intervene because he feared she'd kick him out. He's really sorry. So what do you want? I want to apologize. I'm truly sorry. It's too late. Please don't contact me anymore. It's over. What? Let's get back together. It was all Mom's fault. I was a victim too. Victim? You never listened to me. But I thought Mom was telling the truth. She's always been kind, so I thought you were mistaken. Do you realize how much I suffered? How hard it was? Mother-in-law kept piling chores on me. You never listened. This is the result. That's not true. I was deceived by Mom. Let's start over. I've rented a place near your house. I'm not interested, and the divorce papers have been processed. It's over. What? I shouldn't have sent those papers. It was all Mom's idea. You always blame Mom. Liam seems to understand better. He's not just playing games at home, he's working. What? I thought he was just playing games. That's another lie from Mother-in-law. You two are perfect for each other. Goodbye. Wait, let's try again. Zoe! Zoe! I hung up feeling a sense of closure, as I realized that it was already over, and so I started a new chapter in my life. Zoe, it's your first day at work. Here's a sandwich. Thanks, Mom. I'm running late. I'll make my own tomorrow. Take care. Will do. Bye. I felt refreshed. A few months later, I was promoted to manager. Work was fun and my colleagues were great. I looked forward to the future. Maybe I'll take a break from dating. I'll take things slow.
My name is Emily, a 27-year-old CEO of a fashion brand. I just started my business and there's so much to do every day. I'm swamped. I have had my share of failures and was often stuck doing unfamiliar tasks, leading to many late nights. But since last year, things have been looking up and the profits have been steadily increasing. I'm married to Samuel, who's 2 years younger than me. We met through work and started dating. With my busy schedule, we rarely had time for dates. Most times, we would just grab dinner after work. One day, about 6 months into our relationship, he said, "I'm sorry, we don't get to see each other much."
It's okay, you're busy, but I have an idea.
What's that?
If we get married, we won't need to make plans to see each other. We'll be together every day.
Wait, are you...
I want to support you, Emily, for the rest of my life. Marry me.
Samuel's sudden proposal took me by surprise. We had only been together for 6 months, and while it was unexpected, I was thrilled. Many, including my mom, thought it was too soon to get married. Mom in particular was against it, but I believed. Samuel is kind. We will make it work. I'll thrive in both my career and personal life. Looking back, I might have been too optimistic. Now that I think about it, I was overthinking it too easily. I can't believe it would end like that. At first, Samuel was incredibly supportive. He would always check in on me, especially on my hectic days. When things weren't going well at work, he would say,
You got this, Emily. I'm rooting for you.
"Thanks."
I'll support you in any way I can.
There were times when he would call out to me and encourage me. He would even cook dinner for me when I worked late, but this honeymoon phase didn't last long. Soon, we started bickering over small things. "Don't leave your laundry around.
Okay.
If you eat, wash your dishes."
You're the wife. You should do it.
"What?" His tone had changed and it caught me off guard. "I work late, so it would help if you cleaned up."
Don't use work as an excuse. It's a wife's job to do the chores.
"I'm sorry." I realized I had been relying too much on Samuel and neglecting our home. He's working too, and he must be tired. I realized that I had built up a lot of dissatisfaction and I reflected on it. I decided to step up and share the household responsibilities. But Samuel gradually stopped helping and started complaining.
Pasta again?
It's quick to make.
It's undercooked and bland. Can't you make something else?
I'm sorry, I didn't have time.
You need to expand your cooking repertoire.
On bad days, he would glance at the dinner and decide to eat out.
Did you clean my room?
No, I didn't get to it.
Oh, clean it up.
You can clean your own room.
You call yourself a wife?
His complaints grew more frequent. I'm busy with work too. Cut me some slack. When I finally spoke up, he snapped.
What? You can't even handle basic chores? And you think you can run a business?
He suddenly started yelling loudly and threw a cushion next to me at me. When I got scared and didn't say anything in response, he started to yell at me.
You're trying to be bossy and say you're busy just because you're the president, but I'm also working.
I know you're working too, but
Don't act like you're the only one who's busy. You're not cut out for this.
what?
A woman CEO? That's a joke. You're bound to fail. Haha.
That's mean.
If you're upset, then cook better and clean properly.
I ran to my bedroom, tears streaming down my face. You used to say you supported me. Did you always feel this way? From that moment on, I felt a distance growing between Samuel and me. He would occasionally complain, but I never talked back. Fearing another argument, Samuel started going out more even on his days off, and sometimes he wouldn't come home at night. Our conversations dwindled, and we barely spoke. I began sleeping only 3-4 hours a night. I would head to work early in the morning and come home late, cleaning, doing laundry, and preparing meals for the next day. This exhausting routine took a toll on me both physically and mentally.
Hey, how long are you going to sleep?
I was jolted awake by Samuel's voice. In a panic, I checked the time. I was running late. It seemed I had fallen asleep on the sofa the previous night. Oh no, I'm going to be late.
What about breakfast?
Can't you do that yourself for once? In my rush, I accidentally let my true feelings slip.
You make it. It's your fault for oversleeping.
I started yelling, but I really have to go. As I headed for the door, he grabbed my arm tightly. Ouch! He yanked me back, pushing me onto the sofa. What are you doing?
You think I can go to work hungry?
I was terrified by Samuel's aggressive behavior. Fearing he might get even more violent, I decided to make breakfast quickly after informing my colleagues I would be late. Samuel ate the freshly made meal in silence. As I tried to leave quietly, he suddenly threw his plate on the floor.
This tastes awful.
The plate shattered and the food scattered everywhere.
I'm not an animal. Don't feed me this garbage.
Terrified, I ran out of the house. I was scared to go home that day. I wondered if I could ever have a peaceful life with Samuel. Lately, due to the stress at home, I found myself dozing off during meetings, and it started affecting my work. When I came home after working late, Samuel was still awake.
Welcome back.
That's what he said. He rarely greeted me like this. The mess from the morning was cleaned up and the broken plate was gone. It felt eerie, as if nothing had happened. I finished my chores as usual and Samuel brought me a cup of coffee.
How was work?
Thanks, it's going okay. I was taken aback by Samuel's sudden kindness. We're doing better, profits are stabilizing.
That's good. Keep it up. I'm going to bed.
Maybe he felt remorseful about the morning and was trying to be nice. That's all I thought about it at that time. But the next month, I noticed something odd. Can I ask you something?
What?
Your paycheck was really low this month. Did something happen?
I changed jobs.
What do you mean?
You're earning well, so it's not a problem, right?
Well, we're managing, but when my income became stable, Samuel quit his job on a whim and started working part-time. He was hardly committed, often skipping work. He also began bar hopping till the early hours. His sudden kindness was not out of remorse, but to check on my earnings. I couldn't hold back my anger anymore. I can't bear to live without working, playing with other people's money and not helping out with the housework. What's your deal?
What?
You quit your job without discussing it and you're out drinking every night? Isn't that strange?
So what? You're the one earning.
But you're spending my money on drinks more than our living expenses.
Then earn more. Haha.
What do you think you're doing?
You're so annoying.
Are you cheating on me?
What? Why would you think that?
I can tell, even if you hide it.
Do you have any proof?
I had a gut feeling something was off, even though I didn't have concrete evidence. For instance, he would come home smelling of perfume or suddenly dress up more stylishly. I might not have proof, but I can sense these things.
Is that your woman's intuition? Haha.
Yes, stop cheating and get a proper job.
Shut up.
With that, Samuel slapped me hard across the face. Ouch! I fell backward, landing on my behind. The pain stung and tears welled up in my eyes.
Just work and keep your nose out of my business.
I was in shock and couldn't move for a while. He continued to shout at me.
You probably got cheated on because you're not attractive enough.
I couldn't believe Samuel was capable of this. I couldn't confide in anyone about Samuel. My parents had been against our marriage, and I had a weird sense of pride about not showing weakness at work. A few days later, I had to go on a business trip. I decided to go on an inspection tour to a local factory and was away from home for a few days. I felt a little relieved. Thanks to my business trip, I can get closer to Samuel. Recently, due to Samuel, my fatigue was at its peak. During my business trip, I didn't have much to do other than sightseeing, so I was able to return to the hotel early and rest. I got to relax at a spa resort nearby, enjoying delicious meals and felt rejuvenated. I decided that if Samuel ever got violent again, I would divorce him. When I returned from my trip, I noticed the garbage area was overflowing. Did someone move out? Upon closer inspection, I recognized all the items. Wait, these are all mine. I rushed inside and found a woman's jacket. Huh? Why? When I rushed into the house, there was a woman's jacket lying there. I realized he had brought another woman home.
You're back already? Haha.
Whose jacket is that at the entrance, and why did you throw out my stuff?
Just get out of here. Huh.
What? He laughed maliciously.
Turns out I won the lottery, huh?
The lottery?
Yeah. I was with you for the money, but I don't need you anymore. Haha.
It seemed Samuel had married me for my wealth.
With this money, I don't need to be with you. I can live the good life. Haha.
The realization that he had been using me all along fueled my anger.
You can't even cook. You were the worst wife ever. Huh. Just sign the divorce papers.
He threw the papers at me. They already had his name and signature. All I had to do was sign. At that moment, I decided to make him regret deceiving me. I went to my room and found a woman hiding there. My room was already furnished, with new items indicating he planned to live with her. After confirming this, I turned to Samuel. I'll see you in court. I left those words behind and stormed out. I immediately informed both my parents and Samuel's parents about everything. We told you so, I'm sorry. My mom said through tears, and I regretted not listening to her. Samuel's parents apologized profusely. We are so sorry for our foolish son. I'm planning to take legal action.
We think that's only fair.
Samuel's parents were always so kind to me. It broke my heart to have to share such news with them. After speaking with them, I reached out to a lawyer I knew to prepare a case against Samuel for domestic violence and infidelity. The lawyer whom I met through work was top-notch with a wealth of experience in such cases. He was a rock.
It must be tough for you. Leave the court proceedings to me.
Thank you so much.
We will get every penny we can from the divorce settlement.
Thanks to him, we won the case and I was awarded substantial amount. No amount of money can truly heal the pain I felt, but it did bring some closure. A while later, I received a call from Samuel, probably after he saw the bill. I thought of giving him a piece of my mind, But when I answered, he said,
Got the bill, huh? Haha. To me, that's just pocket change. Doesn't hurt me one bit. Too bad for you. Haha.
I hung up without saying a word. How could he consider such an amount trivial? Did he win the lottery or something? I felt defeated, thinking my revenge had no effect on him, but I decided to move on, focus on my work and forget about Samuel. A month later, he called again.
I'm sorry, I was wrong.
Samuel, suddenly apologetic, caught me off guard. What now?
Turns out I misunderstood the lottery results. I didn't win.
I couldn't help but laugh. Karma does exist.
Oh, you think we can start over?
Are you kidding? Work hard and pay the settlement.
But how can I?
Weren't you the one saying it's just pocket change?
I'm sorry, can you reduce the amount? I really can't afford it.
No way.
I'm really struggling right now.
You should have thought of that before. Look at the bill, and you'll see how much pain you caused me.
Yeah, I understand, but I can't afford to pay that much money. Can I borrow from the woman I cheated with? She left me when she found out I didn't win the lottery.
Sounds like she was just after your money, huh? Well, poor thing. You were just looking for money.
She was the worst.
You're the one to talk.
I finally realized how amazing you are. Please, give me another chance.
Likely another lie.
It's not. Please, forgive me.
No way. Make sure you pay up. Goodbye.
Wait, please.
After that, he kept calling, but I blocked his number. Seeing karma catch up to Samuel was truly satisfying. In the end, Samuel couldn't find a job and couldn't pay the settlement. His parents had to step in. Because of this, he was kicked out of his family home and disowned by his relatives. I wonder where he is now, but it's none of my business. As for me, life's been great. My company has grown, and I have been able to hire more people. I am less stressed, sleeping better, and feeling healthier. I even found the right man and got married. He is nothing like Samuel and remains kind no matter how much time passes. He supports me, compliments my cooking, and helps around the house. I'm living my best life now.
Dad's collapsed.
While I was preparing dinner, my husband Caden rushed home. What? We hurried to the hospital where his father was taken. He had suffered a subarachnoid hemorrhage. By the time he was brought in, it was too late. His father passed away. My name is Alicia. Caden and I were college friends. We reconnected at a reunion and started dating. We have been married for 2 years now, both of us 32. Caden's father owned a company. Caden had always been learning the ropes under him, but with his sudden passing, Caden was set to take over as CEO. I thought there might be some resistance to such a young CEO, but seeing Caden's dedication, he was surprisingly accepted smoothly. He even got along with the senior executives, or so I thought at the time. A year after Caden took over the company, he came home, ate his dinner in silence, and started drinking. Caden wasn't much of a drinker. Hey, are you sure you should be drinking that much?
Mind your own business.
But you have work tomorrow, right?
Just leave me alone. I don't care about the job anymore. The company's going under anyway.
Caden blurted out, visibly upset. What do you mean going under? Things aren't going well?
Yeah, they say the company's falling because I took over.
With that, Caden slammed his drink on the table.
They keep saying I should know better as a CEO, that I should take responsibility. The board always criticizes me. I don't think I can handle it anymore.
Caden's face shifted from anger to the brink of tears. Sure, Caden might have his shortcomings. It's natural for a CEO to take responsibility. But from what he's told me, it seems the board is putting too much on him. His father always treated me like his own daughter and helped us a lot. The thought of Caden ruining the company his father started was unbearable. Is there anything I can do to help? Caden looked up, a hint of annoyance in his eyes.
Well, you have experience in accounting and a secretary certification. You could be of help, but I don't know if it's cool to ask my wife for help.
Is this really the time to worry about that? I was getting frustrated with Caden's indecisiveness and snapped at him. Your father trained you to take over, right? And you're okay with ruining it in just a year? That seemed to light a fire in Caden. We vowed to work together to turn the company around. I decided to quit my job and support Caden as his secretary. Once I started working there, I noticed a significant gap between the older, long-standing employees and the younger ones. Despite the world moving towards digitalization, the older employees were stuck in their ways, leading to inefficiencies and extra costs. When I tried to implement changes, they resisted fiercely, but I stood my ground. But I said, if you can't adapt, you're welcome to resign. I was met with glares, but saving the company was the priority. The reforms Caden and I initiated started to show positive results. The older employees, though initially resistant, began to adapt, learning from the younger ones. As the company's atmosphere improved, so did interpersonal relationships, which positively impacted other areas of the business. We even managed to secure new clients, and the company began to stabilize. A year later, the company made a remarkable turnaround, achieved rapid growth. We have been through a lot last year and couldn't celebrate. How about we go out for dinner for our anniversary this year? Sure, next month is our wedding anniversary. Lately, we haven't had any private time together, but I have been longing for some. But Caden's response was cold. Am I the only one excited? He is busy now, but I'm sure he's thinking about it too. That's what I thought as our anniversary approached. After work, Caden called me over. Maybe he's going to tell me about plans for later. I was foolish to even hope for a moment. Caden, who called me, said something I never expected.
You're no longer needed. Let's get a divorce.
I couldn't believe my ears. What?
Didn't you hear? I want a divorce.
Why? Caden laughed at me mockingly.
Because my company is fine without you now. You're obsolete.
What?
You always taking the lead, making it seem like you're in control.
I was blinded by anger.
So you can quit, finish the handover by the end of the month, stamp this, and you can leave the house too.
He then produced a pre-filled divorce application. Is he serious? At that moment, I still felt sad. But in the next moment, that feeling vanished.
My new secretary is already decided. Ariel, come in.
The door to the CEO's office opened and a woman in her mid-20s entered. This is your wife? I thought she would be prettier, she rudely commented. Who is this woman, my replacement as the CEO's secretary?
Right, Ariel is way better, so I'm not motivated with you. With Ariel as my secretary, I think I can do better.
For some reason, the two started getting close. Oh, I see what's going on. I reached my breaking point. Is she a competent secretary?
Yeah, and as you can see, she's beautiful. If I take her around, our clients will be more lenient. Plus, what's important is my motivation as a CEO.
Just her looks? I couldn't help but speak my mind. Caden was furious.
That's not the only reason. She's also excellent as a secretary.
Oh, okay. Then let's switch secretaries. I'll quit today, I said, snatching the divorce application and leaving the CEO's office. I must have looked really upset on my way out. A young office worker approached me. Alicia, what happened? She asked timidly. I thought it would be rude to leave without telling anyone, so I told the young workers who were still there about what happened. What's gotten into the CEO? This company was saved thanks to you, Alicia. The employees sympathized with me, but I didn't care about Caden anymore. Then, one employee hesitated and spoke up.
Could the woman I saw with the CEO the other day be...
Several people reported seeing Caden with that woman. Apparently, she had been around for a few months. She wasn't a secretary, but a club girl from a place Caden frequented for business entertainment. So their relationship had evolved into that? The sightings always happen on days I left work early. He would say he had work left or a business dinner. I offered to help or join if it was with clients, but he always refused. Now I understood why. Some employees had considered telling me but didn't want to hurt me with mere suspicions. They decided to wait for concrete evidence, although they tried to persuade me to stay. I couldn't. After all, Caden was still the CEO. I said my goodbyes. Most of the executives had gone home, but a few remained in a conference room. I knocked on the door. When they opened, they looked flustered. I noticed some documents but ignored them. I've decided to leave the company. Please take care of things from now on. They simply thanked me for my hard work, so I left. The next day, I quickly found a new place and moved out while Caden was away. I filed the divorce papers and took a deep breath. What had my life become? I visited my father-in-law's grave thinking it was the end. That's when I finally cried. But I believed I had managed to save his company. It wouldn't go bankrupt unless something drastic happened. A month after divorcing Caden, some younger employees contacted me. The new secretary was always by Caden's side but barely worked. She was disrespectful to other employees and had no redeeming qualities besides her looks. They begged me to return, but I declined. Then an idea struck me. With the skills I had gained over the past year, I could start my own business. I began studying and fundraising for my startup. 3 months later, I launched a new company with one of the workers from Caden's firm. Other employees soon joined us. Although we weren't stable yet, most were willing to take the risk. We owe our jobs to you, Alicia. We want to help. I'm here because I want to follow you, not the company. So I decided to work hard with everyone. Around that time, Caden contacted me.
You're poaching my employees.
Really? Your company's in trouble again? I laughed at the once condescending Caden.
That's because you're poaching my employees.
You are the one who's been using my credit card even after our divorce. You'll pay for that.
What? That's my card.
Busy now. Don't contact me again. I hung up and called my lawyer. Soon Caden was served with a lawsuit for compensation due to the divorce. A week later, he visited my office.
You are the CEO now? You owe it all to me.
What? What do you want now? I'm busy, so make it quick. I said, clearly annoyed. Caden then pulled out some documents for a lawyer.
What's this all about?
It's a compensation claim for your affair during our divorce proceedings, plus the credit card bills you racked up after our divorce. It's only fair.
You easily agreed to the divorce and now you're suddenly claiming compensation?
Didn't you know? Compensation claims from divorce proceedings are valid for 3 years after the divorce. You brought the divorce papers and even brought along your affair partner, Ariel. I thought you would expect a claim. Caden's face turned pale, seemingly unaware of this. Everyone at the office gave me evidence of your affair. On days I left early, you always seemed restless, unlike me who never suspected a thing. They noticed. They followed you and took photos. The dates on those photos are from before our divorce. Caden looked even paler, but I didn't hold back. And the credit card? You used my family card on dates with her at restaurants, bars, and more. How could you use a traceable card for your affairs? I sighed in disbelief. Suddenly, Caden's demeanor changed.
I'm sorry, I truly am.
Now you apologize?
Actually, my company is on the brink of bankruptcy. Our clients are leaving, and I can't afford the compensation. I need your help.
I couldn't help but laugh. How many times will you run your company into the ground? If you're in such a pinch, why not ask your competent secretary for help?
But Ariel, she doesn't even have a secretary certification and can't do the job.
My laughter grew louder. You said her beauty would charm clients, right?
But when I took her to the clients, she was so rude that we lost more and more of them. Now, only a couple of companies whose older CEOs like Ariel remain.
Figures. Those companies that left you? They're now our clients.
What?
I didn't steal them. It's natural for companies to seek better partnerships.
No way.
By the way, are your company's executives still around?
Well, only the younger ones moved here. The older ones are still executives.
You should investigate them for embezzlement.
Embezzlement?
Yes, I noticed some suspicious financial activities. I wanted to discuss it, but you dismissed me. Maybe now you can save your company? They probably made you CEO because they thought they could easily embezzle. Kaden was speechless, but I wasn't just being kind. So you'll probably save your company. Make sure to pay the full compensation from our divorce in one go. Considering the division of assets, you can't afford it. Don't come here anymore. You're a distraction. I sent a dejected Kaden away and got back to work. Later, I received the full compensation from Kaden and Ariel. As for his company, they are suing the executives for embezzlement, but it seems they will go bankrupt. After all the effort to save it, he lacked business acumen. It made me reflect on my poor judgment. But now, as a CEO, I'm thriving, enjoying life with the hefty compensation from the divorce.
She's pregnant. Divorce me. My world goes dark at my husband's outrageous words. He hands me divorce papers and a meager settlement, then coldly kicks me out. I have nowhere to go, barely holding back tears. But then, right after, a life-changing phone call comes in. My name is Evelyn. I'm 30 years old. I've been married to Samuel for 2 years. By all accounts, I should be living the newlywed dream. But my current reality is far from happy. It all started when Samuel brought up the idea of living with his parents before we got married.
Hey, Evelyn, how about we live with my parents?
We've never talked about that before.
Look, I travel a lot for work. I worry about leaving you alone.
Samuel, you're overreacting. I'm an adult, you know.
I don't want anything to happen to you. My mom's at home, and since you're working too, she could help out around the house. It could be easier for you.
Well, maybe, but despite my reservations, Samuel kept repeating that he was worried about Evelyn. Foolishly, I took his words to heart, thinking he really cared for me. As a result, I reluctantly agreed to move in with his parents. The day after we officially tied to the knot, all the moving was done, and once things settled down, I took a moment to give my mother-in-law a proper greeting. Mother-in-law, thank you for having me from today. I look forward to being part of the family. Mother-in-law glares at me and sighs,
Yeah.
Would you like some coffee?
No need. Instead, why don't you go unpack? It's annoying to have all those boxes lying around.
Oh, you're right. Sorry about that. I'll get right on it.
Ugh, do I have to tell you to do everything? What kind of upbringing did you have?
From day one of moving in, I received harsh words from my mother-in-law. Not wanting to upset her, I quickly began to unpack. Anxiety swirled in my head. She seemed really mad. We're going to be living together, so I really want to get along if possible. But despite how I feel, my mother-in-law's snide remarks just keep escalating. Before heading to work, I prepare breakfast and set the table. Since my husband and father-in-law leave the house early, I inevitably end up eating with mother-in-law. She takes a bite of the pancake and shouts,
What is this? Evelyn, what on earth is wrong with these pancakes?
Didn't they suit your taste?
Suit my taste? They're horrendous. You expect me to eat this?
I did taste test multiple times, and it seemed fine to me.
That just means your taste is off. Remake them, now.
Her unreasonable demands often made me nearly late for work. Living with her was pushing me to my limits. One day, as I was checking my phone between chores, mother-in-law began berating me in front of my husband.
Evelyn, what are you doing?
Mother-in-law, I just finished hanging laundry, so I was taking a break.
A break, you say? Who do you think you are?
I'm sorry, but I finished all the household chores.
Don't talk back. Wives don't have the luxury of breaks. Find something to do and keep working. Got it?
But...
No buts. If you get it, go clean the staircase, you failure of a wife.
Failure of a wife? I was just taking a short break. Why does she have to go this far? That was the moment it clicked with me, and I decided to talk to my husband that night. Samuel, you saw mother-in-law scolding me today, right?
Huh? Was something going on?
You were in the living room. She called me a failure of a wife just because I took a little break. My husband sighed deeply and opened his mouth.
Look, if my mom said that, you must have really messed up. It means you're falling short, Evelyn.
What are you saying, Samuel?
I'm also disappointed in you.
What?
I thought you'd be a better wife, but as my mom said, you lack awareness. Be more responsible.
What? Lack awareness as a wife? What does that even mean? I'm doing all the housework, even though the premise of moving in was that mother-in-law would help out. I also have a job. Why do I have to endure this much? From that day on, my husband turned a blind eye. No matter how much mother-in-law bad-mouthed me or even threw things at me, he ignored it. He was already often away on business trips and started spending even less time at home. Thoughts of divorce popped into my head daily, but I had a reason to hang on. It was because of my father-in-law. He was the only one who stood by me. Mother-in-law usually didn't harass me in front of father-in-law, but sometimes our paths did cross.
Evelyn, is the front entrance clean yet?
Yes, right away.
After that, you have to weed the garden. I told you just yesterday.
I'm sorry. It started raining yesterday.
You're just slow. That's the issue. Useless. You neglect housework because you're always working.
I'm sorry. Just as I apologized, my father-in-law's voice rang out.
What's going on here? You. What have you been saying to Evelyn? Well, she's slow, so, you're having her do all this for you, and then you talk to her like that? But she really is slow. The garden is still full of weeds, and even the food doesn't taste good, and there's not enough of it. Weren't you the one who never touched the garden before we all moved in? And don't you always bring home ready-made meals? If you're going to complain, at least be able to do it yourself. Fine. Whatever.
Whenever my father-in-law confronts her with these truths, my mother-in-law retreats to her room. Each time he apologizes to me sincerely.
Evelyn, I'm really sorry about my wife's behavior.
No, it's okay. Thank you, father-in-law.
If anything else happens, let me know. Don't hesitate.
Yes, thank you. My father-in-law, who has a strong sense of justice, always stands up for me and scolds mother-in-law. Whenever he's not around, the harassment from her continues. But I've been able to manage, thanks to him. I lost my parents at a young age, so I have no one to turn to, even if I get divorced now. For someone like me, the presence of my father-in-law has been monumental. Then, one day, while at work, I got a call from my mother-in-law. This is odd. Why is she calling me at work? Picking up the phone, I was shocked to hear the news.
Your father-in-law has collapsed. Come to the hospital immediately.
What? Father-in-law? How?
The details don't matter. Your husband Samuel is on a business trip, so you have to come.
Yes, understood. I'm on my way. Since my husband had left on a week-long business trip 2 days ago, I had no choice but to go. I explained the situation to my boss and rushed to the hospital. As soon as I arrived, we heard the doctor's explanation. The situation is unclear. He might not regain consciousness. He was fine this morning. We've done what we can. It's up to him now. What? A tense silence followed. Breaking that silence was my mother-in-law.
Doctor, are you saying my husband is at risk? That it's just a matter of time before he passes?
Whoa, hold on, mother-in-law. What are you talking about?
Well, there's a lot to consider, like funeral arrangements and inheritance. We need to plan ahead, don't we?
But why bring it up now? Father-in-law is fighting for his life.
The doctor's already said there's not much hope.
I wonder how much inheritance he's leaving. Mother-in-law! Even after we got home, all my mother-in-law talked about was the inheritance. She'd look at me with this smug grin and say,
You won't be getting a dime.
Despite visiting the hospital daily, father-in-law's condition showed no signs of improving. My mother-in-law wouldn't even visit him, and my husband was MIA. All I could do was pray for father-in-law to wake up. A few days later, while getting ready to visit father-in-law in the morning, my husband, who had been on a business trip, finally returned home. "Samuel, why didn't you reply to my emails?" I stopped mid-sentence, because there was a strange woman standing behind him. I had a bad feeling and hesitantly asked, "Samuel, who's this woman?" "I'm sorry, Evelyn. I fell in love with her. I can't be with you anymore." "What?" I felt as if I'd been hit over the head. Unapologetically, my husband continued, "She's pregnant. I want a divorce." "What are you saying? Weren't you on a business trip?" "I was on a trip with her. That's when we found out she's pregnant." "You've got to be kidding." Not only was my husband's business trip a complete lie, but he had also gotten another woman pregnant. I felt faint. My vision started to blur. Just then, my mother-in-law rushed over, her eyes shining.
Wait, are you really pregnant? What's the baby's gender?
"We're not sure yet, but it might be a boy."
Oh my goodness, a male heir! I'm so happy.
Seeing my mother-in-law's excitement, the other woman also chimed in. "Thank you, Mom."
Oh, calling me Mom. How cute.
It was clear why mother-in-law was so ecstatic. She had never approved of me prioritizing my career over having kids. That's why she was welcoming this woman who was carrying what could be her grandchild, even if it was the result of an affair. The two of them continued to celebrate, ignoring my very existence. Then my husband handed me divorce papers.
"Here, fill this out now."
"What?"
"I'll give you $1,000 as a settlement for now. After my dad passes, I'll pay you properly from his estate during the divorce proceedings. Now, please leave. You're a burden, and I have no use for a failure of a wife like you."
I was more or less forced to sign the divorce papers. Then I was handed a measly $1,000 and kicked out of the house. A surge of fury overwhelmed me in that instant. I've had enough. I don't care anymore. If this means I'm free from my husband and mother-in-law, then that's what I truly want. But where would I go now? My parents are gone, and I can't impose on a friend's hospitality for too long. Just as I was standing there stunned, my mobile phone rang. The caller ID showed the number of the hospital where my father-in-law was admitted. Did something happen to father-in-law? I quickly answered the call. "Hello? What? Father-in-law?" It was joyous news that father-in-law had regained consciousness. I rushed to the hospital. Upon entering his room, father-in-law looked at me and gave me a warm smile. "Hey, Evelyn, you got here fast." "Father-in-law!" "Yeah, sorry to have worried you. I'm just so relieved. What would I have done if you hadn't woken up?" "I appreciate you caring so much. How's everything at home while I was here?" "Well, thing is," I told father-in-law about everything that had happened back at the house, including the fact that I had just been divorced. I poured out my deepest gratitude to him. "Thank you for always treating me like your own daughter. You've given me so much to be thankful for." Father-in-law quietly laid his hand on my teary shoulder. "Evelyn, this might not be appropriate to ask, but would you consider making me your real father?" "What?" "I heard from the hospital staff that you were the only one who came to visit, so when I woke up, I asked them to call only you." "Is that so?" "Seeing their true colors this time made me realize that blood doesn't matter. From now on, I intend to focus only on you." Father-in-law. And so I decided to become father-in-law's adoptive child. After that, I started the discharge procedures for father-in-law. Once he was discharged, we both went to ring the doorbell at my in-law's house. When my mother-in-law opened the door, she was shocked to see both father-in-law and me.
"Father? And why are you here too?"
At the sound of mother-in-law's voice, my ex-husband appeared from the back of the house. His reaction was even more shocked than my mother-in-law's.
"Evelyn, what are you doing here with Dad?"
"Hey, Samuel. You said you'd pay me alimony from your dad's inheritance once he passed, right?"
Well,
So your dad is clearly in good health. How are you planning to pay that alimony? Look, I can't right now. Once my dad eventually passes and I get the inheritance, I will pay you, okay? Can we drop it? As he pleaded, breaking into a sweat, I dropped the bomb. Sorry to break it to you, but you're not inheriting anything. What? My ex-husband's face turned pale, his mouth twitching. That's when my father-in-law delivered the final blow. From now on, Evelyn is my only family. I'm giving all my property to her while I'm still alive. This house will be in Evelyn's name, so the two of you need to leave. Now. You can't be serious, Dad. Do you think I'd joke about this? I'm utterly done with you. All you care about is my inheritance. Get out, now! You're both worthless. Father-in-law then forces my ex-husband and his affair partner out of the house and promptly shoves divorce papers in front of mother-in-law. Just like my ex-husband tried to do to me, he somewhat aggressively pushes for her signature. Sign your name here. No way! He was resolute. You forced Evelyn to sign divorce papers, didn't you? Now sign! She let out a tiny shriek, then reluctantly signed the papers. They apparently moved into a one-room apartment with his affair partner. With all their belongings shipped to them COD, their new place must be a mess. As for me, thanks to my father-in-law, I was able to claim alimony in the divorce. We also completed the adoption paperwork, and now we're enjoying peaceful days as if we're a real father and daughter. Dad, it's nice out. How about we grab a basket and head to the park? A splendid idea, Evelyn. Speaking of which, the sandwich filling is tuna salad and roast beef, right? You never eat anything else. Ha ha ha, you got me. Even after decades, she never remembered. Don't look so glum. I'll always be here to support you, Dad. Now my life is the epitome of happiness. I never imagined such days would await me back then. There's only one thing on my mind now. I want my beloved father to stay healthy and live a long life. That's my one and only wish.
Hey, you've moved out already, right? I wouldn't want to live in a house with someone as ugly as you. Sister-in-law's laughter echoed over the phone. Hearing her voice, which seemed to thrive on belittling others, a mix of anger and pity welled up inside me. She mocks, laughs, and torments. She's a pitiable sister-in-law who can only find joy in others' suffering. The old me would have let her walk all over me, but those days are over. From now on, I'll break free from sister-in-law's grasp and live my life. I'll live freely where no one can hurt me. I can't wait to see sister-in-law get her comeuppance. That's what I'm really looking forward to. My name is Brittany, a housewife in her 40s. I married my husband Joshua after a workplace romance. For a while after our wedding, we enjoyed our life together. But when we heard of my father-in-law's passing, we decided to live with my mother-in-law. Mother-in-law has always been frail and often falls sick. She's quite old now, and we didn't want to be too late. Joshua said, "My sister is there, so it'll be okay." But even in her late 40s, sister-in-law is jobless, and I couldn't trust her to take care of her mother-in-law. So we moved into the family home, and I quit my job to care for mother-in-law. I remember sister-in-law barely greeting us when we arrived, and Joshua sighing in frustration. Mother-in-law apologized, saying, "I'm so sorry." But it wasn't mother-in-law's fault. The unreliable sister-in-law was to blame. From the start, I disliked sister-in-law and didn't want to get close. If possible, I wanted nothing to do with her. But sister-in-law started to involve herself with me. Her demands were always petty. "Buy me this," she'd say, or, "Don't get too confident." It seemed sister-in-law held a grudge against me. I wish she'd just ignore me. but she kept picking bites. "Brittany, I'm not in the mood for fish today. Make me a hamburger, a big one." Joshua was busy with work and couldn't help much with the chores, so I juggled mother-in-law's care and household tasks. One evening, as I served grilled fish for dinner, sister-in-law, who had made herself a regular at our table, complained. "If you don't like it, don't eat. But I'm too busy to make hamburgers. If you want one, make it yourself." "Why did you make it if I didn't ask? I said I want a hamburger. Make it now. You're such a failure as a wife. Can't even fulfill a simple request? I wonder why Joshua married someone like you." Sister-in-law's loud protests continued, even as Joshua tried to calm her. "I never agreed to this marriage. I hate that my brother married such a terrible woman. Just leave." It hurt, hearing her constant insults. At first, I wanted to understand sister-in-law. I didn't blame her for being jobless. I thought maybe she had her reasons. But living with her made it clear she didn't. She just wanted to laze around. Joshua even gave her an allowance from his salary. I wanted him to stop, but he said he was worried about her. "Joshua recognizes my efforts. That's why he gives me money. But you, Brittany, are such a terrible wife. I can't feel any respect from you." Sister-in-law always used her status as Joshua's sister to complain. "Respect me, I'm his sister. Give me money, I'm his sister. Pamper me, I'm his sister." Just because you're a sister-in-law doesn't mean you're someone special. If you don't act respectably, you can't expect respect in return. That's why I never indulged sister-in-law's whims, and I plan to continue standing my ground, even if it upset her. One day after shopping, I returned home to find my Boston bag at the entrance. Inside, my personal items and clothes were packed. I knew immediately who did it. I called out to sister-in-law, and she emerged from her room, feigning innocence. "This was left outside. You did this, didn't you? Why?" Showing her the dirtied bag, she nonchalantly replied, "Today's the big trash pickup day, right? I thought I'd have it taken away." "This isn't trash. I use these things. Why would you throw them away?" "Well, you're as bothersome as big trash. You've been imposing on us, manipulating Joshua. It's so annoying." "Bothersome?" I was taken aback by her audacity. Are you going to go this far just because you have hostility? Could she be mentally unstable? I struggled to find words, and she laughed crudely. "You playing the victim won't work. The real victim is me, having my dear brother stolen by a woman like you." "Stolen? I never intended." "To me, it's as if you did. If I knew you were this wicked, I'd never have approved of the marriage." Her sudden outburst left me stunned. I was the one who was taken aback by his attitude. "I can't stand living with you. I want a life where I don't have to see you." With that, she stormed off. I regretted not having a proper conversation. That night, discussing the issue with my husband, he seemed deeply troubled. It was comforting knowing he was on my side. We considered moving, but mother-in-law was the main concern. Mother-in-law didn't want to let go of the house she lived in with her late husband. We figured she'd absolutely refuse to move elsewhere. I could understand mother-in-law's feelings, and it felt wrong to force her out. But I didn't think we could persuade her to move willingly. As time went on, my relationship with sister-in-law became strained, and we'd argue every time we saw each other. Seeing us fight constantly, both my husband and mother-in-law would often intervene, worried. I felt terrible for causing them distress. I wanted to resolve the situation on my own, but couldn't find a way. Every time I saw sister-in-law, I'd get irritated, unable to control my anger. Seeing my distress, my husband suggested I take a break and visit my parents' home. He mentioned he could take some time off work and would take care of mother-in-law during that period. Above all, he was concerned about my relationship with sister-in-law. He thought that if I took some distance and had time to cool off, maybe we could find common ground. If I continued to clash with sister-in-law daily, it would stress out both my husband and mother-in-law. I wanted to avoid that, so I agreed to my husband's suggestion. So I decided to take a break and stay with my parents for a while. I'd occasionally check in with my husband, asking about mother-in-law and sister-in-law. But as days passed, I could hear the fatigue in his voice. When I asked if taking care of mother-in-law was too much, he said that that wasn't the issue. He had come to understand how annoying sister-in-law could be. Now that he was in my shoes, with me gone, sister-in-law started pestering him. Of course, he couldn't give in, so he refused. This made sister-in-law furious, and she went on a rampage, breaking things around the house.
I finally get how tough it's been for you, Brittany. I'm sorry I couldn't support you more,
he said, his voice choked with emotion over the phone. Unable to stay calm, I called sister-in-law. Please, stop troubling Joshua. Do your best on your own. But sister-in-law just responded with annoyance, showing no sign of understanding. Then, she dropped a bombshell. So, you've moved out, right? I don't want to live in a house with someone as ugly as you. Turns out, sister-in-law thought I had separated from my husband, not realizing I was just visiting my parents. In front of my sister-in-law, I hadn't discussed the possibility of returning to my parents' home, so I guess she didn't know the details of the situation. It was the first time in my 40 years of living that I realized that there are people who are so good at making others suffer. Sister-in-law was truly a terrible person. I couldn't let her continue like this. I had to do something. So, I decided to take action. Yes, I've left. I won't ever come back. Finally, I won't have to see your face anymore. She laughed and hung up. I called my husband again. I asked him to come to my parents' house immediately. When he arrived, I played him the recording of my call with sister-in-law. I had instinctively recorded it, fearing something might happen. Hearing it, my husband's face turned pale, and he apologized. It wasn't his fault. Sister-in-law was to blame. I have a request. I proposed cutting ties with his family. I wanted him to sever all connections with mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Though concerned about mother-in-law, he agreed to discuss it with her. A few days later, my husband and mother-in-law visited my parents' home. Deeply apologizing to me and my family, I was informed of my husband and mother-in-law's decision. They deeply regretted not being able to stop my sister-in-law's excessive harassment towards me. They were even willing to cut ties with their own family to ensure my well-being. So, my husband severed ties with his family, and we began living with my parents. I wasn't sure how sister-in-law reacted to this, but after a while, I received a call from sister-in-law, who we were supposed to have no contact with. Mom's in trouble. Come home now. Mother-in-law, what happened? Just come home quickly. All she would say was that mother-in-law was in trouble and needed us. When I asked for details, she wouldn't give a clear answer. I found her behavior suspicious and decided to discuss it with my husband later. When my husband returned from work and I told him about the call, he immediately phoned mother-in-law. She was fine and seemed to be in good spirits. When asked if something had happened, she simply said she was doing surprisingly well. So what was the big issue? I couldn't quite grasp what my sister-in-law was saying, but from what I gathered, she's grown tired of living with her mother-in-law and is considering moving her to a nursing home. Fortunately, it seems there's some inheritance left from her father-in-law, so she can afford a decent place. She discussed this with sister-in-law just today. Upon hearing this, sister-in-law exclaimed, "You're abandoning me, and vehemently opposed to the idea." I suspect that's why she reached out to me. To somehow stop mother-in-law. She contacted me to somehow stop her mother. My husband had given up on sister-in-law, but he was concerned about mother-in-law and had been sending her living expenses. But if mother-in-law moves to a nursing home, my husband, who's grown weary of sister-in-law, might stop the financial support. I could easily imagine sister-in-law panicking and trying to stop mother-in-law, especially since she doesn't work. Without that support, she'd struggle to get by. We both sighed at sister-in-law's selfish actions. Despite sister-in-law's objections, mother-in-law moved into the nursing home recently. Just as things seemed to settle, our home intercom blared. With both my parents and husband out, I was the only one to respond. Through the intercom, I saw sister-in-law causing a scene outside. "Bring out my brother now, you thief! How dare you take both my brother and mother from me? You're terrible! Come out, I'll teach you a lesson. Apologize now!" Seeing her rage, fear overcame me. I knew if I went out, she'd harm me, so I stayed put. Sister-in-law kept shouting, kicking our plants, and banging on the door. I contacted my husband, who said he'd come home immediately, but his workplace was far. While I was pondering what to do, I heard a voice through the intercom.
"Hey, what's going on here?"
It was the police. They restrained sister-in-law and took her away. Relieved, I went outside and explained everything to the police. After this incident, my husband and I decided to move far away. Now, in a faraway land, the couple is working hand in hand. Apparently, after learning of sister-in-law's actions, mother-in-law decided to cut ties with her. She declared their relationship over and hasn't contacted sister-in-law since. My parents sought damages for the destroyed plants, which must have amounted to a significant sum. Mother-in-law regretted not cutting ties with sister-in-law sooner, and even sold her house, saying it was a necessary step. She apologized to me for not acting sooner, but I felt I owed her a thanks for her support. Thanks to my husband and my mother-in-law, who were my strong allies, I was able to leave my sister-in-law behind, so I thought I would be the one to thank her. I heard sister-in-law now lives in an old apartment and works part-time. It's her first job, and she's struggling to adjust. Sister-in-law was an extremely slow learner, so it would be difficult to educate her. Well, I wish her the best. My husband and I are thriving in our new environment. My husband even got a promotion and is more dedicated to his work. I support him by preparing delicious meals and keeping our home tidy. While I was with my sister-in-law, there were days when I was too stressed to do these things properly. But now I can enjoy supporting my husband without stress. While he often thanks me, I am more grateful to him for standing by me during the sister-in-law ordeal. I'm determined to continue supporting him as a devoted wife.